Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be beginning the chapter where I do FPV latency from cameras to VTXs to Fat Shark modules and even the closed box type and other kind of goggles once I get my hands on some of those, if I do it. But currently I'm just gonna quickly show you through my research what I have figured out, and I would really like to share this with you guys because it's very interesting. So I've been doing a lot of research and I've finally kind of understood how the signals kind of work. And I wanted to quickly show you and give you the concept of the way which I am thinking, or I am working on how to test the true latency. And if anyone out there who has also knowledge in this to put in some input or some opinion or some advice, I would be totally happy for that. But I believe I have a very, very, very good and very accurate way of testing this. So today I'm just going to share with you the protocol. So now we know these run at specific frame rates. We know PAL runs at 25, and we know that NTSC runs at 29.97 frames per second. NTSC is faster than PAL by a little bit, not by much, but it is noticeably faster. Like, not noticeably in your eyes, but on the measurements. Now, this one currently we are going to be just taking a look at the PAL version. It's basically the same thing, just some minor differences in the signal. And we'll do the NTSC next if you guys are interested, but they're really the same, just a couple tiny differences. So what I'm going to do right now is actually we're going to connect this to an oscilloscope, and we're going to try to make, try to understand or try to figure out what is what on the signals that are being generated through the yellow line. So we kind of get an idea of how these work, so when we test, we actually know what to look for and how to look for, and how to actually get an accurate measurement of the latency of the cameras. So let's jump on the oscilloscope and let's get started. Alright guys, so as we could see here, we have the signal off of the yellow line of the camera. However, it's already pretty dark in the room, and I'm putting my finger on and off the camera, and as we could see changes. So it's a bit difficult to kind of tell what's really going on here. So I'm gonna quickly just zoom in here, and let's just zoom in a little bit more. Okay. I think that should be good. Alright, so let's make a little bit more sense of this right now. So as you can see, there's these little flat lines. So let's take a quick look here. Alright, so what we want to do is we want to change this. Let's get the trigger just right. And alright, so now we have a stable triggering point. So right now what we're seeing is we're seeing these little gaps in the middle here. And through reading through the protocol, and even before reading through the protocol, what you would think is that each one of these would probably be related to a frame. And it's partially correct, partially wrong. Each one of these is a half a frame. So two of these will complete a full frame. Now this will be, let's just say, the odd number of lines in the frame because it's a horizontal kind of interlacing. So, you know, you have your, I know you can't see my fingers, but they're just horizontal and interlaced like this. So we could just say this is the evens and this is the odds. So these two would complete a full image of a frame. So if we basically just ran this part and just stopped everything else, we would just have the odd number of the frames, or the even number. So we would just have that showing on through the screen. Alright, so let's just zoom in a little bit more on this point here. So I'm zooming in, and give me a moment. I'm going to get the perfect. Okay, and let's push this guy back a little bit. Alright, so these are the, we could call like the dead points right here. Well, let me just stop it right there. Okay, so these are the dead points. Move these cursors right here. So what is this really telling us right here? So right now we have these are called the pre-equalization pulses. So I guess this prepares it for the horizontal sync. And we have these guys right here. And these guys right here are the vertical sync pulses right there, these guys. And these are the post-equalization pulses. So this basically prepares it for the next frame. And right here, this is just zero data, zero lines going through, which is clearing out the next frame for the new information to come and take its place, which is right here. So this is the image This is the image right there. And these right here are just preparing it for the next frame. So let's actually quickly measure this, because this would be the, let's just say, this, whatever this equals, and whatever we get the latency, if we get perfect latency testing, we will always add this to it. So it would be, let's just say this is 1 second in theory. We're going to measure right now. So if this is 1 second and we have a 2-second delay, so you will always say our delay would be anywhere between 2 to 3 seconds. Because if it hits between this, then it'll be half of this. And then I'll explain that. I just don't want to get too far right now and lose you guys. So let's just take a look at this right now. And let's actually measure it first. So we're going to quickly measure it right here. There and right there. So we're getting about 1.5 milliseconds. So whatever we achieve as the latency, we will add always 1.5 milliseconds. So we could say from 3 milliseconds to 1.5 and add that to it. So that would be 3 milliseconds to 4.5 milliseconds. So this value is always there, will always be there on all cameras running PAL or NTSC. I think NTSC is a little bit just a tiny bit, but like just point something of a millisecond less. So 1.5 milliseconds will always be a delay, always, because if you get hit between here, if the light turns on, let's say between here, then it won't register until it hits, and then it'll show here. But that's if it has 0 latency, it'll be right there exactly. So if it has 0 latency, the latency will always be 1.5 milliseconds, no matter what. So that is a perfect, 0 latency camera, because these have to be there, because these actually start the next frame to show up on the screen. All right, so now let's just go back here. Let's turn this back on. All right, so the method that I'm actually working on is to, let me just bring this up closer here. Okay, perfect. All right, so now, it's because I'm moving my arm, it's changing. So when people are testing this latency, what they're doing is they're doing a manual, on switch, on and off switch, hoping they would hit it exactly right at the beginning of the frame to turn the light on to make it do something like this, just to actually register. So it would be like this, and they would hope that when they click the switch, from that point on to turn on, and then they could measure its latency. And then they could see if it's off, and it turned on here, then they would say, okay, well, we'll measure from here to here, that's its latency, and also add this. So, however, it's almost impossible to actually hit that manually with your hand. So that is just, you just have to take a bunch of samples and just average everything out. So the current method, what I'm working on, since this is a perfect frequency, and which means the FPV camera has a system clock chip on it or within the IC itself. So basically it just has a clock that just vibrates or sends a signal every specific second, every frequency. So the clock, what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to hijack the clock. I'm going to find the clock pin, get the timing of the clock, and actually take the signal from the clock for myself. And I'm currently programming a device that will read the clock phases and to actually execute let's say an LED to turn on at this specific moment. However, I don't know what's the delay of an LED yet, and that is what I'm trying to work on, and trying to also figure out maybe something else that is more reliable. However, if the LED is reliable, then we can actually do it that way. Now, what else? Oh, I just lost myself. So the clock, what I'm also going to do is with the device that I'm going to program, once it hits the clock, what if it has it's an offset, it's not going perfect right there, let's say it's turning on right here, I'm also going to add a little button it's basically an Arduino, on the Arduino that I'm going to program, and what that's going to do is going to help me offset for 1 microsecond or 1 millisecond, 1 microsecond. So if it starts here, I have these are like 200 lines right there. So I'd have to keep clicking the button like 200 times to get it right here, which would be perfect spot. And once we get that just perfect, then we can actually get a perfect, accurate measurement. And every time I test, it should be always exactly the same. So if I do reach that point, and that's my goal, and that's what I'm aiming for, then we will have the most accurate measurements that's ever been taken on the FPV cameras And hopefully VTX is going to be kind of the same concept. I have not played with them just yet, but it'll be the same idea. And that's how I'm planning on doing it, and that's what I'm working on right now. However, I did start working on it last night. It's going to need a little bit more work than I thought. So maybe a week or two, it'll be completely ready. Excuse me. So that's the current project, and that's what I'm currently working on. Now, for this video, basically, I'm done. But if you guys are still interested, I want to show you how I was able to actually calculate if I had a PAL or an NTSC camera, which is actually pretty interesting. So I'm quickly going to show you this table right here. And it's from this table that I was able to actually figure out that my camera is PAL or NTSC. So there's two ways to actually do this. One is to actually check the line duration, and I'll show you how to measure that right now. So a line is basically just the one line in a frame. And let's just zoom in here. Okay, so, okay, give me a moment. Field 2, no, we want field 1. Field 1 would be, let's just say, the evens of the first frame. And line is the first line of the first even frame. However, these lines right here are all empty lines because these are the ones that are providing the sync. Each line here is a line represented on your screen. So every line here is actually one of the interlaced lines in the frame. So these would be all the even ones. Each single one represents a line. If we zoom in a little bit more, this is how my black room actually kind of looks like. If you know how to read this stuff. So let's go back here. So these are the lines right here. These represents each line in a frame, which is actually pretty awesome. It's pretty sweet, really. So we're going to measure these lines. So if it's a NTSC PAL, NTSC camera, it will be 63.55 microseconds. And if it's a PAL, it'll be 64 microseconds. So let's measure that out real quick. So let's just pause it so make it a little bit easier on the oscilloscope here. And we should start from the beginning of the drop. So we're going to say here. Okay, and we're going to get this guy. And the beginning of the drop, and I'm gonna move this guy for you so you guys can see where here. And as you can see, that is exactly 64 microseconds. So this is a PAL camera. I just think that's pretty awesome. I just think it's pretty darn sweet. There's also another way we could measure. That one's a little bit more complex, and it's just more time consuming, but you can do it that way also. It's pretty cool. It's on counting the lines that initialize the new frame. So let's check those out real quick. Alright, so now I got it all centered for you guys. So a PAL camera, I'll just move it here. A PAL camera would have 5 pulses instead of 6 pulses. So as you can see, here's 1 pulse, 2 pulse, 3, 4, 5. An NTSC camera would have 6 pulses. So that is also another difference right there, which you can go on. However, sometimes, it's not really true, because if you jump to the next frame, it'll actually be a 6. So this is kind of weird for me. Maybe the protocol I'm reading is just a bit off, but knowing this, I know for sure this is because I've measured the NTSC. So I don't think this is very reliable. It could be reliable, but at the moment of time, sometimes it shows both frames would start at 5, but usually it's one of the frames would be at 5. So 5 would be PAL. It's not very, in my opinion right now, it doesn't seem very reliable. So I would rather just count how long the space between the lines, how long the line is active, and that way I can know if it's a PAL or NTSC camera. So yeah. Alright, so that's really all right now, and I will keep you guys updated on what I find and my current progress of how I'm going to be doing this and setting it up. I'm still writing the code. I'm still figuring out the best setup and trying to see and figure out what is the latency of an LED turning on. However, I was playing with the photoresistors. To be honest, they don't seem very reliable in accuracy measurements. I was actually playing them last night, and it was just I don't know, I just felt, maybe I could be wrong, but I just felt and I just saw it just doesn't seem like it would give me consistent real good results. So that whole photoresistor thing was just I don't know. I just don't like it. I didn't like it, and I don't think it's very reliable. I could be wrong. I'm not saying I'm right, but I think my method's a lot better. We could actually hijack its own system clock and have it trigger an event on its own clock, and then just set an offset switch. And I think we should get the perfect, most accurate. I don't want to say perfect, but I believe it could be the most accurate measurements you could find anywhere online. So I mean, that's the goal, and I'm going for it. And I really hope you guys could show us some support, I guess. And yeah, and that's really it, guys. I just wanted to keep you guys updated and just show you the progress, and just thought it was very interesting to share with you guys. And that's it, guys. So I will see you next time. Take care, and please don't forget to like and subscribe. See you guys.